the strait's open, the strait's not open. We're going to charge people. We're not going to charge people. I'm confused as to what's even happening. Brent Sadler joins us. He's from the Allison Center for National Security at the Heritage Foundation. He's a senior research fellow and a naval warfare and advanced technology expert. Glad to have you on the Annie Frey Show. Welcome, Brent.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today.
Hey, glad to have you. Now, since I started getting ready for the show this morning, and between the time I started getting ready and the time the show started, now we're not going to charge people to go through the strait. Please help me out. I can't keep track.
So it's I wouldn't say that the idea is dead necessarily, but clearly as a question of legality, of course, there's a very stark difference between what the Iranians were doing, where they were basically saying, pay us or else. So it was compelled on international neutral shipping in international waters, totally illegal, kind of like a mobster would do. What President Trump offered was, hey, look, you know, if we're going to provide security, if you're going to participate with us and you want our security, there's going to have to be some kind of fee so we can sustain that. Not compelled, not an obligation. You can participate, and if you don't, well, it's at your own risk. That's actually legal. And there's lots of ways to do kind of like the payment in kind. That could even be via the insurance companies that do the shippers actually go through. But it also looks like some of our Gulf allies and partners there, like Kuwait, UAE, and Saudi Arabia, they're looking at making big investments and billions of dollars into the United States. And they're saying, can we offset the cost it is for you by investing more in the United States, where it's a win-win for everybody. They get a long-term investment in the United States. We get more jobs, more industrial, and maybe even some other kind of like good benefits in the investment over here.
It's so confusing, and it's so important for the entire world that the Strait of Hormuz be uninterrupted.
Yes, more so for some of our key Asian allies. The Europeans, most of their oil can bypass the Strait of Hormuz now, except for natural gas. There's a pipeline in Saudi Arabia that goes from the Persian Gulf over to the Red Sea, far north of the Houthis, which are starting to become a problem down there in Yemen. And they just the Europeans can get their crude oil without too much of a problem now. But not so much for natural gas. And certainly our Asian allies like South Korea and Japan, Philippines, Australia, well, they're in a bit of a pickle because theirs has to go past some dangerous choke points.
Yeah, what a mess. I mean, and the thing is, 1 minute we're controlling it, 1 minute we're not. That's what's also been confusing for a lot of people.
Oh, no, absolutely. It's totally understandable. I mean, maritime law of the sea, maritime issues, it's usually over the horizon, literally and figuratively, for most people's concerns. I mean, we've had a few years in the recovery from COVID, people are starting to realize how important shipping is and having functioning ports. But now we've got warfare from Ukraine in the Black Sea, the Houthis in the Red Sea, and now the Persian Gulf. I mean, I think it's now become common day discussion. So I think more and more people are realizing the world is connected across the oceans. And that's the only way we're going to be able to, by protecting that, we protect our economy and livelihood. So
absolutely.
It's become very real, I think.
And the economy and livelihood of other countries are some of our allies, which is really important. We're speaking with Brent Sadler. He's from the Heritage Foundation. I'm Heidi Harrison for Annie Frey. So what have we been blowing up the last couple of days? I got to tell you, I'm thrilled to see this happening. I don't like to see things blown up. But I was very concerned a couple of weeks ago that Trump just did not understand Islam. And apparently, for whatever reason, now he seems to understand who he's dealing with. I'm thrilled about that. I've lost track of all the things we've blown up over the last couple of days. Tell me what's happening.
Well, when it's the bad guys, I have no problem with them blowing up. And right now there's been a lot of bad guys getting blown up along the Strait of Hormuz. So things like radar sites, launch pads for missiles, roadways that these missile launchers and drone launching trucks drive along, as well as taking out the drones. There was a really remarkable attack also where we used 3 unmanned drone boats to go in and attack a port facility with a submarine that was on top of repair facility and supposedly destroyed it. Something that you've seen and people have gotten used to seeing in Ukraine. And we basically took a page out of the Ukrainian playbook and played it against the Iranians. So it's pretty remarkable stuff going on, but bad guys are blowing up, thankfully.
Well, that's good. Once again, Brent Sadler here from the Heritage Foundation. I'm Heidi Harrison for Annie Frey. Question, there's a lot of information, I'm sure, and technology that they are testing and that they are learning from as a result of what's happening in Iran. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it actually predates this current conflict with Iran. So back in December last year, the U.S. Army reverse engineered the Iranian Shahed drones, the ones they were given to the Russians, launched against the Ukrainians. Looks like a little like A-wing looking thing with a propeller. Well, we reverse engineered that thing in a period of months and then have been launching waves of these things into Iran. We're playing the game back on them. Low cost, very dangerous, hard to kind of manage when you have a lot of them coming in. And then this thing with the small drone boats. So clearly the U.S. military is learning quickly, adapting, and is not so proud that it's not going to take on the lessons and apply the tactics of some of our other partners and adversaries.
Yeah, I used to be an honorary commander for many years out at Nellis Air Force Base, where with the 422nd, where they test tactics all day long. This is what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I interviewed a general who was talking about one of these bombs that went down into the mountain. I think it was the AMU he was talking about. And he said he was there to watch it. This is all unclassified. He was there to watch it. And he said they put a traffic cone on top of the mountain. They dropped the AMU and the traffic cone split in half. That's how accurate these things are. But they've been testing these things knowing they were going to need these for a very long period of time. And I think about my friends who are still out there testing the tactics, and they test them in the desert and all these things. And this is why we do it, because of these kind of situations.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. I mean, defense and security, when you need it, it makes it all worthwhile to have made the investments over years, both in people, training, fuel, and material, and all the science that goes into making sure you stay the best. Because loss, you can't recover from a defeat.
That is so true. Now, what do we think is going to happen here? Is Iran finally going to acquiesce? I mean, the difference, of course, between Iran and other countries, they don't care how many people they lose. They have a different goal in mind. I mean, they could stick their one arm out of the ground and call that a victory, right? It's just a whole different way of thinking. But what do you think is going to happen here? What's the end game?
Well, it's going to be, it's too hard to tell, looking way out. I mean, the goal should be a new government or regime that's in Tehran that's more responsive to its people. The nature of the regime has to change. It's the only way we're going to be able to have a peaceful Middle East and a peaceful relationship with Iran. I mean, if we've got the same kind of vicious, terroristic kind of regime and they're just different names, we're going to have this problem again. So that's the long goal. But in the next couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months on the outside of this, I think by destroying the last threats to shipping in the Straits of Hormuz, that effectively eliminates any leverage the Iranians have in negotiations or in conflict with us, threatening that shipping. Once we take that away, they'll become a lot more pliable and I think a lot more agreeable to making a deal, because they don't have anything to trade anymore. And any position of strength we just eliminated.
That's a good point. Now, I remember hearing a couple of weeks ago, there was a lot of talk about Kharg Island and their ability to refine oil. And if they couldn't refine oil, that eventually they'd have to cap off these oil wells, and then they'd never be able to get them. Talk a little bit about that, because that's important.
Yeah, there's two things there. So the refining is, taking the crude oil and then basically processing into jet fuel, kerosene, diesel fuel, gasoline like you put in your car. That's what the Ukrainians are doing. They've been going after the Russians there. And you're right. You take that away, you got a problem, because you can't get usable energy or gas. Kharg Island does have some refining, but its vast majority of it is just the crude oil goes there. They store it in these tanks and they load it onto ships. And something like 90% of all their outbound petroleum trade, which is like 90% of their economy, their export economy, goes through Kharg Island. But if you come out of Kharg Island, you still have to sail a ship through the Straits of Hormuz and go out that way. So you still got a problem there. So if you bottle up the Strait of Hormuz, you bottle up Kharg Island and everything else.
And you can't get the oil out of there. So then there you have no place to put the oil that you're getting out of the ground. And at that point, would they have to cap the oil?
That's right. And that's what was getting ready to happen. They may have started to cap some of their wells, but clearly as the ceasefire was going on and the blockade was in effect, it was clear that they were having to make a decision in Iran to start capping the wells. And when you cap the well, you start getting water intrusion inside. And it's not like simply like turning on a faucet in your sink. It's like, I'll turn off the oil and then turn it back on. You actually have a process that you have to go through. And sometimes you have damage in the well that you have to fix before you can start to resume. So it's not an immediate recovery.
Right.
And that was in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, that was my understanding, was one of the aspects too. And what's so funny is that we can escalate anytime we want to because we know where all this stuff is. The fact that we haven't blown it up today doesn't mean we're not going to blow it up next week. And that's what they're finding out, that we have more resolve than they planned on.
That's correct. I think the key right now is going to be eliminating any Iranian threat to shipping through the Straits of Hormuz from like places like Bandar Abbas to another port city called Chabahar. So this is on the outside, towards the Arabian Sea side of the Straits of Hormuz, and right there. And that's where the U.S. Navy is executing a lot of its interdictions and threats to enforce the blockade. Because you basically got the cap in the top of the bottle. You pretty much have everything inside the bottle, like at your control. And that's what's happening right now, and why this blockade was able to be turned on so quickly.
Yeah, here we are hundreds of years later, and we're still fighting the pirates, aren't we? It never goes away. I just read a book recently about Captain Kidd and all those guys, in the 1600s and all the piracy. I mean, nothing changes, does it, Brent? Nothing.
No. Human nature is human nature. It's just maybe you go from sails to actually ships with diesel engines and gas turbines and nuclear power.
Right.
So, yeah.
Same attitude. Brent Sadler, Heritage Foundation. Thanks for joining the Annie Frey Show. Great talking to you.
Thank you. Likewise.